Hey man,
Hey, what's up? How was the draft?
it's still going on right now. I'm sure you know you're probably following it along too. But I just got home from the AT&T Center, and the first three, four picks was just a blast inside the AT&T Center. It was mayhem. I'm gonna put some of those videos together before this, or like into some shorts.
And
And
everything you heard, I mean, was there ever any doubt who they were picking?
no, I don't think there was. I mean, the day that draft lottery happened and Brian was there in France with Wemby. For anyone who doesn't know, the Spurs had the number one pick out of the lottery.
Say his name.
Um,
Can you say it?
Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So Victor Wembanyama is the one who was projected to go first overall. I mean, this guy is 7 foot five. I think he's 260. And he's just a phenom. I don't know who anybody watching this who would not know that, but there was no doubt. I don't think ever. And what I was saying was, at the night of the draft lottery, Brian Windhorst was there with him and interviewed him right after the Spurs got the first pick, and you could tell how happy he was that it was actually the Spurs that got the first pick, because this has been a team he's been watching since he was a kid
Right.
with Tony Parker in the early 2000s for 7, 8 years.
Mhm.
Boris Diaw on the San Antonio Spurs. He actually played for both of their teams in Europe, in France. So big connections between Wemby and the San Antonio Spurs. So it was just a perfect fit
Yeah,
for
exactly.
him.
The Spurs have had such success cultivating the Euro stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it, earlier back, it's easy to forget, but not that long ago, teams didn't want them or at a certain level. You know what I mean? Like they all kind
Right.
of amassed there and
They
showed
kind of they just
it
seemed
belonged.
like a more haywire kind of basketball player. A not tough, a non-tough basketball players.
Right, that did get
How I
thrown.
remember it.
Huh?
Ginobili changed the game.
You did?
I know there were many people before him, but I'm just thinking of in my generation, since '97 drafting Tim Duncan, Ginobili, I felt like was a European player that just really um, influenced the NBA a lot. Tony
Sure.
Parker, of course, too, and we're going to see a lot of that from Victor Wembanyama. I I mean, there's no doubt. I don't know if you've seen a lot of his highlights, but
I've seen some of it. So, but what are they saying? I mean, how is he an under the basket guy?
no, he's basically he's got handles. He's got point guard handles. A lot of the talking heads, the media, are saying he's like a 6'2" guy in a 7 foot 5 body,
Wow.
because he can just dribble around you and back steps and behind the backs dribbles, all kinds of crazy things you just wouldn't see from normal players. And this guy's taking 3 point shots and rebounding and dunking his own misses. He's contesting 3 pointers and then contesting the basket, like
Right.
all within 2 steps.
Hmm.
So
Sounds a little
it's
scary.
going to be amazing. Yeah, I mean, if I was a Laker fan, I would be really scared.
Yeah, I mean, I'm over here in Laker land, and we don't much care what is going on tonight because we have our own thing. But it is big for the Spurs, and I can see, 2, 3 years down the road. But they do this where they have there's some other generational talents that haven't panned out. You know, I think Zion would be the most recent, and it's not
Yeah,
like he's over or it's a done deal that he's not gonna pay off, but it just hasn't yet. How many years has that been? 3, 4.
4 years. Yeah, I mean, he's had a lot of injuries since then, but I mean, even still, you can't if you can't say someone won a championship only because of injury, then you're not allowed to give Zion Williamson a pass for his performance the past 4 years in New Orleans just because he's been injured. Like, that's part of your
Right.
job.
They keep talking about how he's
Not
not
eating so much.
right,
The
exactly. Put down your nuggets. Put down the
jambalaya.
yes. Yeah. So
Well, they actually showed a stat there at the AT&T Center on the big screen. Definitely, uh, not exactly what you were saying, but apparently there are only 3 number one picks that have ever won a Finals MVP,
Hmm.
and that would be Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and
Right.
sorry,
LeBron.
LeBron. Yes, LeBron. Yeah,
Hmm.
the number one, number through number 4 picks. It's not always a sure thing that you're going to get a franchise player, and more than likely, you want to be somewhere in that 8 to 12 range where you're picking up some good players, and you still have a good team.
Mm-hmm. I want to know the atmosphere when they announced his name, where you were.
Like it was a drawn out process, I think, especially for number one, because it was like, okay, Adam Silver is coming on stage, and he's like, this, oh no, Malik Andrews was announcing, okay, the Spurs have the number one pick. It was as if it was about to start,
Mhm.
and everybody stood up, and you could feel the energy just kind of start to overflow, with people just wanting to exclaim, and it not being that time yet.
Mhm.
Um, and then they ended up talking. The panel ended up talking for a couple minutes, even minutes after the pick. They have 4 minutes to make their pick. The pick was in within 2 minutes, and then they kept talking and kept talking about Victor Wembanyama and his history, his story, and stuff. So it was a drawn out thing. But as soon as, like, the chime, and it's like do 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 do, and that something's about to get announced.
Right.
So then the commissioner goes on stage and he says San Antonio with the number one pick, and you can just feel the arena just rise out of their seats, just everybody at the same time, cameras out, just holding it back, waiting for it, and he said Victor's name, and the whole place just went crazy. And I have a video of the whole place going crazy. I have a video of me going crazy. It was a really, really good time.
I'm glad you were there. That's so cool. Well, I mean, let's back up. Like, how many you have the championship in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and then when did that team really fall apart? The not to,
Why?
I, no, no, when. I mean, I don't fall apart. I just mean, I
Right?
don't. It's not like they fell apart. Sorry, it's the wrong terminology. They just reached the end of the road, right?
No, I think that was correct. They fell apart because uh, Tim was getting older, Tony was getting older, Manu was getting older, Kawhi was really holding it together, and what they did to Golden State before Zaza, a cheap shot went under his foot, and
Oh,
that was it. Kawhi Leonard getting hurt. Kawhi was who we were leaning on,
yeah,
and we couldn't, not that we couldn't rely on our vets anymore, but you need a full team. You
there
need
had been a shifting of the focus of the team. Yeah.
There had already been a shift, exactly. And when Kawhi got his MVP against the Heat, that was kind of the start of the shift for Kawhi Leonard taking a more prominent role on the team, and him getting hurt and injured, just it turned everything around, because at that point, Ginobili was gone, and or going. Tony Parker was getting let go of, but he still felt like he had another year. He went to the Wizards or
Right.
Charlotte.
Never seen anything
Um,
from him again. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then Tim Duncan, did his thing, but you can tell that he couldn't keep up with the young guys anymore. As good as he was to just be a floor general and make the passes, get the rebounds,
And he was
you
still
know,
getting 18 points a game or something like
yeah,
that.
he was still a great of all time like he is, but you could tell that he lost a step, and more than that, that the younger people had a couple steps on him. So that swing was really in conjunction with Kawhi Leonard getting hurt. I think that was the Spurs kind of starting their downward trajectory.
And then he's sitting on the beach somewhere, as far as we know, because
Tim,
yes, because he's never made any attempt to come back or show his face. He seems perfectly content with his decision. He's gone and he's
he's
gone, right?
been he's been an assistant coach for the Spurs. He's helped the Spurs. He's been a consultant with the Spurs, and he has agreed to come back to the Spurs again to coach up Victor Wembanyama.
Oh, okay.
So he's played kind of a role trying to be a vet, with the Spurs. I think he's missed it
I see. Well, I have dated information that I knew that he just took off for a while.
into the sunset.
Yeah.
Well, you may not recognize him because I think he has dreads now. I mean,
Mm.
they're not long, but he's doing something different with his hair now. That's right.
Sideline, folks.
He
I'm
has
on the
cornrows that are
sidelines.
kind of
I do
tied
not
back.
know. All right.
Huh?
I'm on the sidelines, guys. I don't know.
So that's exactly right. I've just been sitting closer to the team.
Yeah. Um,
Well,
so
well, so I got this cool gear. So I got this new hat
mm,
from the sports shop there, the fan shop there at the AT&T Center. It's got these really cool bands of the old. There we go.
yeah.
Just the retro Spurs colors. They
Sweet.
had a they had a huge line. It was queued up before the draft even started for the new jersey. So they hadn't, of course, released the jersey yet, but I guess the team just knew. So as soon as the first pick was announced, they opened the curtains and all the Wemby stuff was for sale.
Yeah.
And it was just a packed house. I mean, it was crazy. It's
Look
to,
at
to be there in the middle of summer and see all those fans and everyone just going nuts.
Tell us
I
about this
mean,
last season. I mean, what were Spurs games like this last season? How full were they? What was the
not very full, and I think that's kind of why I mentioned how packed the AT&T Center was because the past couple years, especially right after COVID, the arena has not been very packed. We've been formidable when we had Murray, and now that we got Vassell and a couple other players, uh, they're looking good, but we're still really in a rebuild.
yeah,
And so, I mean, Spurs fans show up and show out, but I don't think there's any market where you're gonna be filling your seats when you're not very good,
yeah.
and they just weren't very good last season at all. Their record was 22-60. Where do you think the Spurs will end up? What do you think their ceiling is in the playoffs, or do you think they even make the playoffs?
This year?
Yeah,
I think that all they have to do is be in the top 10 to get into the play-in.
right.
No, I think this year it was wide open. They could have made the playoffs this year and they just got edged out.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think if they're going to be better next year, I do not see why they couldn't be the eighth seed or
Well,
better. I don't see why they couldn't
let's
be the sixth seed.
one thing I'm thinking about is the how careful the Spurs are with their players, especially how careful they're going to be with someone like a 19-year-old scrawny 7'5" Victor Wembanyama,
Right.
and are they going to win enough games to really be in the top 10? I feel like they will, but then when I look at let's make a list all the way down, right? We have to assume either the Suns or Denver are going to take number one, which when one or two, you still have Golden State, the Lakers,
Are going to be better.
Sacramento's not a team full of chumps. Uh, what else is going on? I mean,
Dallas Mavericks
The
have
Timberwolves are
Kyrie.
not really in it. Memphis Grizzlies may be in it depending on how well they do without John Morant for 25 games.
Right. They should be there. They're not going to have Dylan Brooks weighing them down.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. No,
um,
well, I think you're right. I mean, I think they could be in that 9-10 range and give themselves a shot with the play-in.
yeah, I mean knowing how well coached they are and that they should be better, I'm looking at 6, 7, 8. I don't see why they shouldn't be there. Because as you said, what'd you say? Lakers, Golden State, Nuggets. I gotta say,
Yeah,
uh,
Suns, Sacramento.
Suns, Sacramento, and you got to say Dallas is in the mix.
I completely forgot Dallas. I mean, but it
I'm a
depends on
Dallas
what they
fan.
what they do because they just may be Luka by himself with some pieces if Kyrie's not there.
Might be better off. Well, okay, so that's 6 I just named, and then if you add Memphis, that's 7 teams
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
all ought to be
You
one
know,
through ought to be
a
one through
sleeper
seven.
might be OKC. OKC might be a sleeper only because they're going to have. I mean, they're super talented, but they're also going to have a lot more camaraderie. They're going to have a lot more fit because they've been around for 2-3 years now together.
Yeah, could be. I mean, it was really tight because there was one point where they were in the playoffs, and then like 2 games later they were the 13 seed, OKC,
Yeah.
and like everybody, I remember reading an article about, oh, what a great season this was, but they ended up 13th. But they were playing well and they won some meaningful games. So
Yep.
something goes a little differently, they could have been in the playoffs. Um,
Yeah, and to me, I think it begs the question of like, did they just do well up until after the All-Star break? Like when teams actually start trying, were they losing then? And what does that say about the team?
hmm, hmm,
Something to watch.
right.
Something
Yeah,
to watch
yeah.
for
I mean,
this season.
if you're asking my opinion, I'm not counting on OKC next year above those other teams, but because you just have, I mean, look, Golden State acquired Chris Paul today for Jordan Poole, who did nothing for them this year. Nothing.
Right.
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 And obviously Chris Paul's 38 years old, and an old 38, a banged up 38, uh pretty much a lock to get hurt in the playoffs 38. Um
Well, he was doing that 5-6 years ago. I
exactly,
mean,
exactly, yeah. Against Golden State. So,
yeah.
but then we don't even know if but Draymond's opted out. We don't even know if they're keeping him.
Well, that's a business decision on his point, right? I mean, he if he opts in, then he limits his earnings and he limits the duration of his contract.
Right.
By opting out, he now gives himself an opportunity to get a longer contract, maybe some more money.
Well, I just think it'd be foolish to not give it to him. I thought it was very foolish for Kevin Durant to leave, and that's a while ago now, but I think it'd be foolish for Draymond to go somewhere. He might start thinking, I mean, look, everybody looks at the Lakers and says, what if? He may be thinking now that he's friends with LeBron, but it'd just be bad for his legacy. He might as well ride it out. Steph Curry's still in his prime. Be much better off to just say that's
Yeah.
uh,
I really don't think that he wants to go. I don't think he even has a desire to leave the team, but I think he does want to guarantee some time, especially with him being, what is he, 33?
Draymond.
Yeah, Draymond.
Um, no, I think he's older than that. Curry's 35, and I think Draymond's
Okay.
35.
Okay. So what's the update with the Lakers right now? We haven't yet talked about the Spurs 33rd and I believe it's the 44th pick in the second round, which has probably already happened with as much time's gone by since I left the AT&T Center. But what's happening with the Lakers? What's the newest with them, and what are they hoping for with their pick? They're 17th, right? Did they end up moving up?
They have picked um like they've got it here. It's Jalen Hood Schifino from Indiana. And I don't figure he's an impact player. They've got a stacked roster, and um I don't imagine he's gonna get played time. So
Yeah, probably not right away. Probably not right away. I wouldn't be surprised if they sent him to G League to start.
right. No, I wouldn't be either. The way LeBron teams work, that's win now. And if that's something that they can um package him for something or other, they're gonna smack him on the booty and they're gonna say, you know, good sayonara.
So why wouldn't they have done it already? Wouldn't they have known if there was a team out there that wanted that 17th pick that maybe they could get a vet or someone in their prime?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think for all I can figure, they're licking their wounds. I mean, they are probably just waiting for something big to fall. They're trying to figure out, can they get a can they get a Kyrie for less money, some kind of thing? Can they, can they get they're gonna wait to do things like that until there's no other big fish out there. Because I guarantee you LeBron is big game hunting
For
and
sure.
thinking,
And And as soon as the third pick happened tonight, news broke with that pick because Damian Lillard made it very clear that he does not want a youth movement in Portland.
Right.
And they were supposed to, this was a whole big discussion and a sign. If they pick for the number 3, which they had, that would indicate to Damian Lillard that he's free to go, in a
Right.
sense. If they had traded it for a vet or some other multiple players to put around Damian Lillard, then that would have indicated they want to keep him longer.
Right.
So we don't know, obviously, what's really going to happen. And I'm kind of jumping the gun into what's going on around the NBA. But to your point about the Lakers being on the hunt and LeBron being on the hunt, that's a super viable option now in my mind, because he does not want to be there with a rebuild with a
No.
bunch of young players, which is all they really have right now around him.
Yeah, the problem is with the Lakers that they just don't have any assets that they want to trade. I mean, if somebody like a Damian Lillard is available, then maybe they do some stuff, but they're locked up. They have a bunch of team-friendly contracts. They've got players that that are getting paid less than they're worth. They've got Austin Reeves, who is a starter,
Yeah.
excellent player, who is getting paid peanuts. Well, I mean, he's going to get paid now, but I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. He will.
he's absolutely a 25 million a year guy.
Yeah. And Vanderbilt
He
is
showed
is
up.
also another one of
Yes, yes.
their
Vanderbilt was
keepers.
nice. I mean, they went from the 11th seed to the 7th seed, and I think they had dipped below 11, but excuse me, I think they were 13th when the trade deadline happened. Anyway, they clawed and they clawed, but I mean, if everybody's healthy next year, it's not going to be that way. I don't know that they'll finish better than they did. They may only make. I would like to think that they would, but I mean, getting to the Western Conference Finals was already pretty good for not for Lakerland,
For
but I
what
mean,
they had, but for what they had,
where
I
they
mean,
were getting there. My point is that um they're not going to be the 7 seed. They ought to be play have a much better
four
record.
five, four
All they
five.
all they got to do is run it back, and they're going to be a top seed. I
Yeah.
think I'm looking at them to be 1, 2, or 3.
I'm going 4-5. I'm gonna take the over.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. Um, so you don't think the Lakers would trade their number 17 pick and D'Lo and maybe another player for
Yeah.
Damian? Well, I mean, man, that just wouldn't be enough for Damian Lillard, I guess.
They would trade D'Lo, and I would pack bags for him. I would uh I would buy his airplane ticket for D'Lo. Um it's yeah, that's a good point. They would absolutely trade D'Lo. But that's about the only loose piece that we've got that's worth anything because he's getting paid some big chunk of money. And
Yeah.
they pretty much proved they couldn't count on him. Although he was good in other rounds, but I mean, he just looked bad against Denver, and Denver's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
Real
he was too hot and
quick.
cold. He was just real too hot and cold because, like, when he was hot, it was like, yes, I'm glad I have that guy. But when he went cold, the Lakers just looked.
Well, he was cold, but he looked scared. He didn't look like he suitable to be on the court. Like he was jacking up shots that we knew weren't going to go in. So
And then
real
when you
quick,
have
we
your
gotta
when
talk
you have
about
your second or possibly first best player currently on the team and Anthony Davis just not showing up every other day,
yeah.
you can't have multiple players on the team doing that.
No, no, you can't. And they're not going to move away from Anthony Davis, as we all know. Because how many times does he look like, a top 5 player and then, because we saw some of those games against Golden State. I mean, I don't even know when I've seen that he was just gobbling up the ball. It was pretty crazy how
Yeah,
they had
yeah.
no answer for it. Real quick, we got to talk about the Nuggets. What are your thoughts on this championship?
I'm really happy that they won. I think
too.
I mean they're a formidable team. They are kind of like the aliens in Space Jam.
Mm.
They were just bigger, better, faster, stronger, taller, longer wingspans. I mean, I wanted Miami to win for the sake of, the underdog and uh, Jimmy Butler just kind of coming out and finally like making his name on that level. But I thought Denver played an amazing series. I thought they played an amazing four series or three series in the playoffs. Um, they're tough, and I don't know that they're going to even lose anybody this coming year.
Well, it seems that they're not. I think that they deserve it. I'm really happy for them. And yeah, he had so many shots that he was. I mean, he's the only person that takes that sort of one-footed three that goes in,
Yep,
and a lot of those they had no business going in, but that's normal for him. And now
yep.
we're all getting to see it.
Joel Embiid tries it a lot, but he's not as successful.
That's hilarious the way that whole thing played out. Like people just really didn't want uh Jokic to get the MVP. And it was this whole narrative to give it to Embiid because it's his turn. And I was saying, look, I mean, granted, Denver didn't do him any favors at the end of the regular season because they were sort of losing some games down the stretch. But I mean, that was still pretty contrived the way they just forced it to go to Embiid. And then he did what I knew, like those 76ers, they are a second round team, and that's their ceiling. And I
Yep.
have never bought into any of that. And I get that they have a giant fan base, but I will not ever buy it. They're never going to win a championship. If Damian Lillard goes there, then Lillard is ruined. That's what I think. I don't think it doesn't matter what you give to the 76ers and Doc Rivers. That is a mistake.
At best, you're going to get to the finals and lose a 3-game lead.
I don't even see that. I disagree. I just don't think they're getting past. Miami's too clutch and well coached. Celtics got better. The 76ers, I mean, are they what's going on with
Yeah,
Harden?
go ahead.
What's going on with Harden, right? Isn't he leaving?
It's still up in the air. All signs point to him going back to Houston, but
Right.
I
Yeah,
don't know what's going on there. And
Sixers are frauds, and you can't, and nobody can convince me otherwise. And all the hype and all the talk and all the everything is wasted air. And I've always thought that, and they've always proved me right. Like I saw this list of like the teams that they'd beaten, and it was just sad. Like they've never actually won a meaningful playoff series. They've beaten like the Raptors and the like Hawks and stuff and the Wizards, but there's not like a meaningful team or meaningful player that they've ever like actually gotten the best of.
hopefully Tyrese Maxey improves this next coming season. If he can be a good wing guy for them, then they'll be a little bit more competitive. But the Celtics are finalizing, if they haven't already, their 3-team trade for Porzingis.
I heard it went through. They said it was on
It's
the
official.
part, and then it went through. Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm.
I think the Celtics are going to be super formidable. And what's going to happen with Milwaukee, because they're getting rid of Chris Middleton, and they don't have a lot outside of Giannis to really take them to the Eastern Conference Finals, do they?
Right. Yeah, I mean I believe that way more than I believe 76ers. It's a question mark. You're right. That's what will they do? I could believe that with some proper moves that they could make the finals again.
Yeah, I think this is what's so interesting about the NBA is that, I mean, it's still June and
Mhm.
we're making predictions just based off of everything that's just happened literally in the past 2 or 3 days. And we've got so much more time before the actual trade deadline,
Mhm.
and anything can happen. I mean, to your point earlier, that with the Lakers, like anybody can make some kind of trade that's just going to turn them around.
Well, look, I mean, LeBron was playing this whole playoffs with a foot that needed surgery. And if you go back to when he broke the scoring record in March, this was not a hobbled person. This was the 40 point a night guy that was dunking on everybody. Then he came back and he needed surgery, but some German doctors kind of fixed him up, whatever, some kind of platelet stuff, and he was able to play basketball. But, he didn't have what the hops. Now at his age, is he going to ever have an injury-free season? I'm not even sure of that. As a big fan of his, I'm not 100% sure of that. But, you know,
And especially
they
with the lack
weren't.
of depth that they have right now, you can't really give him a spell. You can't let him rest for a minute.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of what happened. I saw this interview with Dwayne Wade, though. To contradict you a little bit, Dwayne Wade he was asked, well, what happened to them when LeBron got hurt? He said, well, actually, that was the best thing that happened to them because it forced those new players to gel because they went on a run coming back up the standings before he came back.
Hmm.
And it was like, oh, okay, this is actually a pretty good team without him now. They have more depth than they've ever had in the LeBron era Lakers. And if they're not deep, they're deeper than at any point in his tenure. You know, every one of those games against Denver was winnable. And I'm not going to be that guy that says we should have won or anything. But if you look at those games, they had leads in them, they had leads late. They deserved to lose, but you can't tell me that they're that far off. And if you're saying, all right, the games went the way they went, and LeBron was playing on a foot that needed surgery, it's
Even
not
still, he
inconceivable to
performed
think,
well though. Even still, he performed well. I mean, if Anthony Davis showed up every single night, and if they weren't just throwing up threes
yes.
without any kind of reason.
Don't I know it? I know. And they're almost conceding some of those games a little early, but again, we're talking about games that they had leads with 5.5 minutes to go
Yeah,
that they lost, and obviously they got swept. And so, how close was it? But I mean, as far as there were no blowouts in that series.
yeah. I mean, and you think about the two shots from Jokic in what was it, game 5, game 6, where he just throws himself back and chucks one over the extended arms of Anthony Davis,
Mhm.
and it just goes in. And then 2, 3 plays later, he does the same thing to LeBron.
Right? Yeah, no, totally. It was their year, and hats off to them. There were only 4 games because it's a sweep. Um, but yes, that was
Oh,
maybe
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
in three
yeah.
when, yeah, that first one when they came to LA. So, I don't think they're that far off. Will he have an injury-free season? I mean, here's the deal. It's like all of his teams. We can him and haw about what and how it could be. They're going to go as far as LeBron takes them, and they can have
Yep.
all other pieces right and they can do whatever, but you win by having the best player. And if you have LeBron at his best, then historically you have had the best player on either team and you're capable of winning. You don't have that, then you need some things to go right. And plus Denver, look, they got beaten pretty badly in the bubble. They're seething. That's the thing. They haven't stopped talking about the Lakers since they won. And Mike Malone, every interview he gives, he wants to talk about LeBron and call him by name. You know what I mean? That's all they've been thinking about since they lost a few years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
All of this to them was revenge, where we don't even think about them or care, right? But now they won, and this is what's still on their mind is how they avenged all that stuff. So now it's going to be on our mind. Now the
Hmm.
Nuggets are a target for everyone, and we'll see what kind of year that they have. I don't see them falling off. Hell, Jokic is only 28.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And Murray, if they would have just had him, this wouldn't have taken so long.
Yeah, exactly. They because that was the Western Conference Finals, and then they had 2 years where they weren't even on the map, and then they got back and obviously won. So it's sweet if you're them. I would say stop talking now, but that's the way it
Well, yeah,
always goes.
don't tell us to take LeBron's name out of our mouths while you're in the playoffs or while you're in the finals, and then all you do is talk about LeBron.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. Right. I mean, he's you don't need me to list his accolades, but I mean, he deserves to get talked about. And they are a good team, and Denver was better. So I'm glad for them. And Um, I want to see them do it again. And I know that it's the way it always goes though. When somebody wins, and now they're the target. Nobody took them seriously. Yeah, they were the number one seed, and they've been the number one seed probably before, right? No one took them seriously, and now they will. And so we'll see how that shifts things.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch this season play out. I mean, I'm just tooting over here in San Antonio, but especially for Spurs fans because I've never seen anything like this kid.
7'5". How tall
Seven
is Yao
five,
Ming?
7'6".
Okay, so we're in that
So
territory.
he's the second, third tallest player to ever be drafted into the NBA.
Hmm. Wow. Well, that's pretty amazing. And they say this about generational player, like they said about Zion, but I feel like it's getting said more. This kid has something different that must just be beyond, there's generational talents and there's generational talents. I mean, the last generational talent was LeBron,
Yep.
and he got drafted in 2003. So it's just 20 whole years later. I mean, that's what generational is supposed to mean. Generational is not every 5 years.
Right. Right. And Zion was right there. It was like it wasn't so soon that we couldn't say that Zion was going to be the next best generational talent. Like enough time had passed.
Mm-hmm.
Although 20 years now seems like it's more appropriate, but 4 years ago it seems still appropriate. Like, okay, well, 16 years has gone by.
Yeah.
Time for another generational player, and he just hasn't proven it at all. I'm interested to see him go somewhere else.
I would say it's time. Um, but does he not want to play there or whatever? I mean, sometimes you need to get traded, I think, to sort of wake up.
Well,
Um,
but that's no one knows because he's not saying anything. So all we can assume is he still wants to be there, or at least nothing's being said publicly. Nothing's leaking at all, other than the fact that he won't keep himself in shape.
Isn't it just amazing that you can get this 200+ million dollar contract off, after you have your rookie contract and then you don't do anything substantial and you're injured and then you still get
$200 million contract.
max,
Yeah,
right? And now he's still not doing anything and been injured.
and with as talented as he is, and like for that to be an innate talent, all he needs to do is stay in shape.
Yes.
He's getting paid 200 million, right? 200 million,
20, I think I read.
20 million,
220. I think I
220. Okay, 220. Yeah, just to stay in shape. I mean, essentially.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I wish I had his money and I'll be in shape. But but I mean that's what happens. That we've how many that's what you see all the time. I mean, when guys finally get paid, you wind up with Jordan Poole. You know,
Exactly. I was just gonna say that.
it's like because I remember Steve Kerr was like, look, he won that championship and then he got paid. And then Steve Kerr pretty much threw him under the bus. He said, look, I would not have picked him to I never would have anticipated he would get that contract. In so many words. That's what he said it in a nice way, but it was like from the beginning of the season or something, just didn't see it coming. But then a lot of older guys say that because the money was never that big back then. But Jordan Poole's getting crazy money. He's getting Draymond money.
Yeah.
And
Well, now he's getting Draymond money with the Wizards,
yeah, but I mean,
the Washington.
he's got like he overperformed. He got a championship as the like third best player on that team statistically. So, and granted, I mean, look, I don't put a lot. Not every championship's created equal. Can we agree on that?
No, of course not. Mm-mm. Oh no, we can agree. Yeah, no, we can definitely agree. But yeah, you're right. They're not equal
It's like
because when you think about just LeBron's championships, they're not all equal.
no, no. I mean, but I don't put his, to me, none of his are big offenders. I mean, I look at the Golden State injuries. I look at, you know, that one, I mean, uh, look, I look at the Golden State wins. That's what I do look at. That's it. It's like they have skimmed, they have just like slipped by and never beaten good teams. The one time they went against a full strength team, they lost, you know? And granted, they would have beat Toronto Raptors if they didn't get hurt.
Right.
Um,
And that hinged on a very low percentage shot from Kawhi.
yes, that too.
With as contested as he was, not necessarily the corner three, but with as contested as he was,
Mhm.
falling away
How many times did
from
it
an
hit?
inbound pass.
Yeah. Well, fortune favors the bold, I suppose.
Speaking of Kawhi, what's going on with the Clippers? I mean, it sounds like they're entertaining the idea of trading Paul George.
Imagine being a Clippers fan. I mean, I can't. I what with them, I mean, what I'm hearing is that they're willing to trade away the farm to change things up, because the Lakers said, well, we're not giving any, like, if Chris Paul's available, we're not giving anything but the vet minimum. They would trade their house for Chris Paul just because that's the kind of foolish stuff that they do. So I'm pretty sure that yeah, I would believe that to trade Paul George.
Yeah,
Um, they're probably going to make some major shakeup.
they've
And
got their new arena opening up. I
foolish.
mean, that's kind of the biggest thing that I've heard is why would Steve Ballmer just want to put this team, this broken, injured team, in a new building and start things off that way? It seems like he wants to blow it up and go young and take a fresh start into the new arena.
Right. Well, I mean, Steve Ballmer got $1 billion to quit Microsoft. He didn't make that when he worked there. He was paid that to quit. So he's a quitter
He's
and
okay.
are losers. And so I,
Oh,
I look the other way. But that's what I'm
well,
hearing. They're willing to trade away their stuff.
what do you think that's the worst superstar experiment in the past decade, even?
Perhaps, I mean,
Or maybe no. I think the Nets, the Nets actually were probably the worst.
that's got to take the cake because that one was like, wow. I mean, they pretty much did nothing, and they were never on the court. They were never even on the court
I
together.
was scared. Who wasn't scared of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant on the same team? It was like unfair until you realized.
Look, add a championship to LeBron's resume for just the fact that none of us knew Kyrie was crazy.
And
We didn't know he was crazy. Like,
LeBron
from us. He
somehow made it
somehow
happen.
wrangled him and somehow got that out of him. Okay. Immediately it became clear that he was crazy. Right.
So does that say more about Kyrie or more about the other teammates he's had that couldn't get to a finals with him?
Right. I think that it just says, to me, it says everything about LeBron. When you're in under his umbrella, you do as you're told, up from down. On the Nets, they had the audacity to say we don't need a coach.
I know, yeah, yeah.
And like all this sort of business, and it's just like, oh, there's things more important to him than basketball. Well, fine, but you know, that's well and good until you're being paid $200 million to play basketball and they sell tickets for people to come and see you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty asinine, some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth. And I just kind of wonder what's next.
Well, let's bring this to a close here, but I want to recap everything that just happened with the draft tonight. So, would you be able to help us out? Where did the what did the Spurs end up picking, and what did the Lakers end up picking?
All right. It's still going, and we have the Spurs at number one, Victor Wembanyama. On down the line, we have the Lakers at 17, Jalen Hood Shafino. And that's all. That's where we're at. Now the 24th pick has been picked by the Kings, and we're on.
Oh, okay, okay. We're only on the 24th pick right now?
First round still.
Wow. Wow. So we can jump back on and watch the end of this thing because the Lakers and the Spurs still have a couple picks.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the second round. You've got the third pick.
Yeah, we got a third pick
14th pick.
from the Hawks, I believe.
Yeah, the third pick and the 14th pick in the second round. And the Lakers have the 17th pick again.
Okay. That's the way I have it is there's the total, so the 33rd and 44th pick.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's finish watching the rest of the draft. This is a good first show.
Yeah. Yeah, we got down to some things, some very important details of the NBA season. I can't wait to see this unfold. And this has been Sideline Takes, episode 1.
Yep.
William, your
I'm
car.
Carl. I'm in San Antonio, Texas, Spurs fan, and
Los Angeles, California, and I'm Laker Gold. Uh,
what if LeBron moves to the Warriors?
he's not. He's not. He's going to live out his years here, and he's not going to no Warriors.
No.
No, I hate the Warriors. We hate the Warriors. This is not a. This is not. I lose to the Nuggets. I'm like, all right, it's their turn. I beat the Warriors, and I fucking hate them. There's no. There's nothing but bad blood. All right, we don't like them. It's like if the Clippers had balls, that's the Warriors, but we hate them both. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So would you say the Lakers and the Spurs are no longer rivals? The the rivalry, I think, has been too long gone, hasn't it? What was that? 04, 05?
That went for a while. I mean, that went 2011. That's when the Lakers were going for a three-peat and the Spurs swept them. So that was still going, you know. They were top 10. When did it end? I mean, nothing ended until the Spurs ended their run.
Yeah.
Kobe retired. So now
Yeah.
it's a full reset. But I mean, has it? Yeah. Well, it's just for now, I would say that it's died off, but it could come back. You know, the Spurs, even with they've got their 5 championships. That still puts them as one of the winningest teams of all time. Right? So they have a big fan base. People expect to win. And to my thinking, it's just a matter of whether that will happen while Pop is still the coach.
Yeah.
I mean, how much longer is he going to stick around?
I think if things go well in the next 2 years, if they can start seeing themselves move up in the playoffs, I think he'll stick around as long as he has his mind about him.
And how old is he?
Pushing 80,
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Let's see.
77.
74.
74.
So, yeah.
Not as close to 80, but it's still
Oldest NBA coach by a large margin, right?
yeah. Yeah. So what's the next thing we should be looking out for? I mean, I think trades happening in between now and summer league.
Yes, the definitely the a bunch of hammers are going to start to fall. And then this draft having happened, I bet everybody's gonna probably hold their breath till tonight is over. Some of them went, but they're just waiting to see. But there's not gonna be anything else to guess over once tonight's done. So then it's just gonna be when will it happen?
Yeah.
I bet we see, like years ago when Kevin Durant got traded, that was July 4th, as I recall. So I mean, we could be seeing some things around then.
Yeah. I think a lot of dominoes fell or will still be falling tonight.
Yes.
Even in these later rounds, because uh you have teams with multiple picks, Spurs included, who may not necessarily need those picks. And I'm just super, super excited to see what trades end up happening because I feel like the NBA is really split more than I've remembered it between teams that are really starting fresh and teams who are like, don't give me them new guys.
Hmm.
We're win now mentality. The teams at the top are just everyone's vying for it.
However, this was a more balanced year than I can remember. I mean, it seemed like we had the Heat were a play-in team, they made the finals. Lakers were a play-in team, they made the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
And it's like just the fact that, and it's not just that you have 9 and 10 get in, it's that 7 and 8 aren't safe, you know, and so it just sort of changed everything. And by the time you're the sixth seed and you're thinking, all right, if I slip to seven, I'm not safe. And it was all bunched up. All these teams were separated by half a game at one stage. You know, it felt like a more balanced year. It felt like a more balanced league. And you were talking about how good OKC was, even though they were 13th, but it's because
Yeah.
they were right there.
Yeah. They were. Those young guys have a lot of potential.
Hmm.
So are the Suns? I don't want to keep extending this, but
Sure, we didn't mention them.
are the Suns the team to watch? I mean, don't they have the most power on their roster right now?
Well, at what point does the Kevin Durant sort of illusion of power start to diminish?
I
I
think
like
it's
him.
diminished, and I think that's why you bring in someone like that at the point, so that you can have someone who commands the offense because he can't do it.
Right,
Talking about Bradley Beal.
right. Right. But I'm just saying that's where it comes from when we say, oh, they're so talented. We're thinking, all right, well, that Kevin Durant is still a top 2, 3 power in the NBA by himself. Is he? Or is he more like a top 10 player at this stage?
I still believe that he's top three offensive player.
He hasn't demonstrated that in a couple seasons. But I'm not denying it. But you're asking me how do I feel about the Suns on the whole?
Yeah,
I think that they're prima donnas. I think that they never did anything except beat a depleted Laker team. And they were so full of shit after that. And it's carried them to now. And so again, this is my personal
yeah.
things that
No, I'm with you. Prove it to me.
I don't think
I'm with
I
you. But
just don't see them winning at all. Um, but they'll probably have a good season next year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Probably.
interested to see how Aiton's mood changes with
Mm.
a new
Right.
coach.
Yeah. And without Chris Paul, apparently they didn't can only figure they didn't get along.
But you
You
have
know?
to know that when someone like Chris Paul doesn't get along with you, it's because of your work ethic.
Right.
It's because he doesn't. He literally sees you not wanting it as bad as you need to get to the point where they're trying to get to.
Mm.
That's how I feel. I think LeBron's the same way. I think when LeBron finally realizes that someone is just not putting in the work, he's done with them. He gives up on people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Well, you're not going to be on his teams if you're not towing the line. Um, and you're not going to play. It's just, isn't it hilarious? They turned Kendrick Nunn into like Rui Hachimura, you know, and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
and just having people
that's
play
why
roles.
that's real quick. That's how Austin Reeves came to be because LeBron decided he can trust him.
Hmm.
And apparently this guy is really smart and was able to soak up the knowledge that was required and fill the role as I mean, everything he's doing, I bet you that's exactly what he is being told to do in practice. And he
Yeah.
just by leaps and bounds. But this is a case of LeBron can trust him with the basketball. Therefore, he has it and he's turned it into
Hmm.
good
And
for him.
and
LeBron's got
he's
all
not
kind of
going rogue on the floor.
no.
He has a mentor, or at least in his mind, he takes advice as if it was being mentored to him, and it's like, okay, this is what I do. I'll do this. It's not like, well, let me come up with my new way of doing this, or let me add a little flair to this. It's like
No, no, no.
how I was told to do it.
He is happy to have a leash on him, and that's gonna be interesting to see if he. I don't believe he will, because everything he's shown is that he is a very highly skilled, highly intelligent player. But it will be something to pay attention to. Is he somehow different this next year because he's getting paid and
Well, not just that.
all
People are
the
going to be
attention
paying
on?
attention to him more. Was he that good because people didn't expect it of him? I think that happens a lot too, season over
It
season,
does.
is people start paying attention to you, and now you've got defenders actually really pushing up on you.
Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's I'm sure that'll be the case to some degree. I'm just wondering about his head though. Did he in
Mm,
the off season and everybody's telling him you're awesome?
hmm.
Because he's got to be the most popular white player in the NBA, and he's like one of the top selling jerseys in the whole NBA.
I think Luca's the most popular white
White American.
guy. Okay.
I didn't say the most. I just said he's got to be one of the.
Oh yes, yes, yeah.
Certainly, if
No,
we if we cut out
he's
European,
definitely beloved for
no,
sure,
he's from the
especially
South.
in
He's
Lakerland.
from Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's like if did I tell you I had a dream? I don't think I did. I had a dream. This is a good way to end. I had a dream that I was on the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yes. How'd this go?
And so I was like the 16th guy on the bench. You know what I mean? Like my teammates didn't even know who I was. And for some reason, I was put into the game and I made a couple of big baskets at the end. I remember having like sort of a teardrop go in, right? And we won the game. And then like it turns out the whole thing was like at my church that I grew up going to. Like
Uh-huh.
the basketball game was like at the church, the
Uh-huh.
Methodist church that I used to go
The
to.
church gym.
And so after the game, and I no, sorry, before that, I was on the sidelines and I saw like my face up on the big screen. This was one of the really realistic dreams, and I like saw my face up on the screen and it was like the game was over, but like Sports Center was showing on the big screens and it was
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
doing stuff and they were talking about me. I was like, wow. And then later I was at the church and I was like in the uh area where all the food is. And I was like meeting all the people that I grew up knowing were like, wow, that was a good game. And coming over to talk to me. LeBron
Uh-huh.
LeBron walks in and like wants to meet me and like wants to talk to me and we're like walking around the church, getting to know one another and stuff. And that was the dream. I woke up. Uh,
You woke up, oh, man.
I
Right
know.
when things are getting good.
I know. No, it was already good. It was I was
Yeah.
a Laker. We won the game. Got to meet LeBron.
LeBron's
I
arm
met
around your
LeBron.
shoulder,
I
like,
was like, I
hey,
realized
dude.
later, I was basically Austin Reeves. Like that's what his life actually is. I'm from Mississippi and he's from Arkansas. And I'm sure that happened to him.
Yeah. You just kind of personified yourself into his shoes.
Hmm. I'm not 6'7" or whatever Reeves is.
It's so amazing how they seem like there's just regular average looking guys because everyone else is 7 feet.
At least 6'5".
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say. All right, man. Well, this has been a great first episode. I think we
I
should
don't
save
know.
some more
Yes.
stuff for next week.
Okay.
We're going to be watching what else happens with the rest of this NBA draft. There will be some trades coming up in the next week. I am sure of it before we get into Summer League. But then Summer League is going to be super, super fun. We're
Yes.
going to get to see a lot of these prospects doing their thing.
Keep an eye on the Spurs. I'm gonna pay attention to everything that goes on. And
Yeah, I know you said the Lakers are deep, but I'm praying for you guys. I mean, I
We're
hope something gets
deeper than
figured
we've
out.
been in the LeBron era. And all we got to do is run it back, and we're going to be a better seed. And I'm just the point I'm trying to make before is that we made the Western Conference Finals, and that's not good enough for the Lakers. But I'm not going to act like we didn't have a successful season because we did, despite that. So
Yeah,
just because
yeah.
we have a better seed next year, will we be better than what we finished? I'm not promising you that we will. I know we're going to be a better regular season than we had. That I'm promising you.
All right, we'll come to find out.
Yeah. All right, Carl.
All right, thanks for getting on, and we'll see you everybody next time. Bye.